A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Aftab Ahmed with Flashpoint, the program that looks and deals with issues, dilemmas and stories which concern the Muslim community in the UK and Europe. Today we have the honor of having with us the first Muslim president of the TUC, the Trade Union Congress, a post which no Muslim, in fact no Asian has ever held before. And my guest today is Mr. Muhammad Taj. Taj Sahab, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum Assalam, Aftab Sahab.
बड़ी खुशी है कि आप हमारे पास अब आ जाए हैं.
शुक्रिया.
And obviously to accommodate you better, we can speak in Urdu, English, Punjabi, mixed, whatever you feel is right for you.
I'll try all the three languages.
I'm glad. Okay. Let's begin, Taj Sahab, by asking you to give us a brief history of yourself to date.
Aftab Sahab, I was 14 and a half years of age, and when I came to Britain on 18th of December 1966, very well. My father came to Britain first in 1960, and as a result of a very serious illness he had, and which he couldn't be cured in Mayport, and no money could afford the treatment. He had TB, very late stage. So when he came to England, he was in the hospitals, taken straight from Heathrow in an ambulance over there. In those days they did things like that, yes. TB, they didn't know actually how it spread, and they were very careful.
What year was this, sorry,
1960.
1960, okay.
And so he was taken to Grasington Hospital, and he was kept there for 6 months, no friends, no relatives, nobody to see him. And after 6 months of release, he came to Bradford, and he met some friends, some people he knew from his own city, Mayport. And they were able to provide him with accommodation. Eventually he found a job. And of course in 1966 when we came here, my mother had TB, my brother and sister had TB. I was the only one who didn't have it. And that was at very early stages. So truthfully, the NHS, the National Health Service, saved my father's life and my family's life, and I wouldn't be today here if it wasn't for the NHS.
Sorry for the interruption. You were telling us about your arrival in the UK and how your father was diagnosed with TB and how the National Health took care of him, and then let's go on from here.
Of course, my brothers and sisters, they were able to recover very quickly because it was early stages, and that was my first time in England. I couldn't speak a word of English.
You were 14 years old.
I was 14 and a half, and so therefore I had to wait 3 months before I go to school. And when I did go to school in April 1967, 3 months, and those days they used to kick you out at the age of 15. As it happens, my 15th birthday fell on 7th of July, and I was out there.
Right at the end of the term?
At the end of the term, yes. Yeah. And then my father was very determined that he really wanted me to pick up some basic English, and so I was sent to Bradford College for a year and a half to do a 2-year diploma course in English, which I could never complete because I was from a very poor background. Those days, like many other people, and so I went straight into textiles, and I worked as a training manager in a store, and then I worked in dyes and bleachers, and eventually I ended up coming on buses as a bus conductor in 1974. This is when I returned from Pakistan, from Mirpur, Kashmir. My grandfather passed away in 1973, and his last wish was that he wanted to be buried there. So I took him over to be buried, and because I met my wife Naseem, and then I really started to stay back and persuade our parents to allow me to marry her, which I was successful in persuading them, and she came back with me.
Lucky man or unlucky man?
I would say that I'm a very lucky man.
I'm glad.
Yeah, very lucky man.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yes.
In the TUC, obviously, is the Trade Union Congress, which represents trade unions in England, Wales, Ireland and Scotland.
That's right, yeah.
In other words, the whole of the UK.
Yes.
How does somebody who is a bus driver with an ethnic minority background, which is so typical from Mirpur and family, typical family, go down the route of trade unions?
Well, you know, I didn't in fact choose this route, and I think it was, you know, sometimes miracles happen and God guides you in certain direction. In my case, I started as a bus conductor because really I didn't like working in factories and foundries, the previous job. And I worked there for about a year and a half, and after that, there was an English friend of mine, my conductor in fact. He asked me the question, he says, you know, your countryman has to pay bribes of £400 to middlemen.
To get the job?
To get a job.
Right.
And because
this is 1974?
This is 1974.
Okay.
And this had been going on for a number of years, which obviously I wasn't aware of, I just came on. And I didn't know either, because I didn't pay any money to anyone. Jobs used to be plentiful, and the joke used to be, if the uniform fitted you, you got the job.
Yes.
And because the hardest bit was they couldn't find the right size uniform to get them made. And so he says, what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, what is there I can do? I was only 21 at the time. And we attended a union meeting, another union meeting, and there was a Yorkshire Post newspaper in Leeds. And they were carrying out an investigation to some of these corrupt practices that were going on. And they heard that I was a bit radical. I was keen to put a stop to this. So somebody put them in touch with me, and I assisted them over a period of 9 months. Then 9 months after, a story broke out in the newspapers that there was scandal taking place. Various people got suspended, and long story short, there was a court case. The personnel manager died during the trial in court. One of the union representatives, which is my position for the Transport General Workers Union, he went to prison for 18 months. Then we had another Asian middleman, he got 9 months in prison. And of course the personnel manager, when he died in the court, the real crooks got away with murder in reality, because they said he took all the money, and basically there's no evidence against it, and they got away with it. And of course after that the management started victimizing me, because they said he was the person behind it from work, they could get rid of me. And this is when my colleagues, Pakistanis, Indians, Bangladeshis, Afro-Caribbeans, English people, they said he's a good man, we want him to be our spokesperson. And I was nominated to seek election for the position of a shop steward. And my first words to them, I said, no, I don't want to do it, I can't do it, because my English really isn't that good. But I was pushed in to be nominated, and of course I got elected with the highest number of votes. And a few years later, I stood for another position, which was the branch secretary. This was the previous guy who went to prison for 18 months. I stood for that position, and that position, in fact, Pakistani people have been trying, Muslim people have been trying for their position, standing for elections every 2 years. For the last 12 years, and nobody succeeded. And I was the first one succeeded. I beat the other sitting candidate by literally 39 votes. So it was a close ballot. And that was my starting involvement in the trade union movement. And in a nutshell, really, I'll say to you, the reason I got involved in the trade union movement was accidentally. It was because there was injustices taking place.
Well, let's stop there, because what I want to ask you is, to go along with that, is you knew there was just injustice taking place outside the trade union movement. What about inside? Were you readily accepted in the union, or did you have to fight your way through? Did you have to fight like an invisible barrier, tacit discrimination?
Of course there was. Initially, there was no barrier for me, because they were really pleased, they were happy with the union structure.
But at that level?
Yeah.
But they didn't want you to go any higher?
I got elected at that position. They were very happy, and I was very much welcomed to the family. But politics or trade union work, or anywhere in society, there's an inner circle.
Yes.
And to become part of the inner circle takes a lot of years.
Yes.
And that was the difficult bit, to break those barriers down, to be part of the circle. And when I, of course, got involved, I was quite radical, with Tariq Ali students' movement, and all the other socialist movements, Indian Work Association, Pakistani Work Association, Kashmiri Work Association. Those days, they were very talented, educated people who came from Pakistan. Some of them went...
Well, you had to be talented to come here in the first place.
Of course.
They only let people in, as it were. Either you were a worker or you were talented.
Absolutely.
Nobody in between.
Yes, yeah. So I, in fact, I was very lucky in that sense. But when I started raising issues, problems for our communities, I'll give you a prime example that we had a problem that lots of our Pakistani Indian people, Bangladeshi people, and people from Africa Caribbean, they needed to return back to their home countries for 3 months to 4 months to visit. And there was no facilities. The only thing you could do was leave your employment, and then you came back after a year. But there goes the story that you had to pay another bribe of £400 to get a job. So we, in fact, negotiated.
So if you took more than your allotted time, days off, as for your holiday, as it were, paid leave, you left your job.
You had to leave your job to go to Pakistan, but when you came back, you started your service all over again. For that,
so that wasn't counted.
It didn't count towards pension purposes. partnership. So people, in fact, were losing very heavily. So then we negotiated an agreement with the company that you could save 2 weeks holidays every year. And when it came to the 5th year, you could have up to 18 weeks holidays in one go. And that was, in fact, demand led by the membership, by the Asian communities. But prior to me, there were lots of white officials. Requests had been made to them, but they were denied. We had a request for a prayer room facility plus evolution area. It was denied. And when I came along with my Irish colleague, who was the chairman of the branch, both was in fact went away, fought head-on-head management, because they had a policy they were not going to allow us any religious facilities and premises. So what we did, in fact, was there was an area that on a Sunday where no manager was there, we brought contractors in and we got them to build a wall, put a door, a lock and a key, and we said this is now a mosque area, and we classified as the prayer area. There was hell loose on Monday. They wanted to
I can imagine.
They wanted to sack me and my Irish colleague.
On Friday, somebody goes home, they see an open plan office, as it were. Yeah. They come back on a Monday, there's a partition there, there's a door, they have the lock on.
Lock on. And of course, we gave actually the key to the most senior person in the job who was asking the request. And we said to him, Aji Sahab, now you are our official imam for this mosque. And of course, management, when they came back, they was huffing and puffing.
Yes.
But nobody had the moral courage to do anything about it. So after that, we managed to actually get those facilities in every depot, every city, up and down the country, wherever there was a demand. So I think it was something, imagination, good idea. And so did the extended leave idea, extended throughout the UK. So there's tremendous amount of work the trade unions can do if you're there from your own communities.
Well, you know, you open the doors for yourself, or you had help from your colleagues, obviously, but literally you opened the doors for yourself because you went down that route. Would you say that a lay person today, an ordinary Muslim today, if they wanted to, they could get into trade unions the way you did, or would they find it difficult because yours is a one-off?
I would say mine is one-off, but what we need to do really is the people from the Muslim communities, if they want to climb up to structures at that level, is sheer hard work, involvement, commitment. And the early days, people used to be wanted to get involved in trade unions, and they were participating. And we don't actually see that much happening nowadays.
Involvement doesn't mean you have to drink. It doesn't mean you have to go out to pubs and clubs with them.
Of course not.
It means you've got your own integrity, you've got your own dignity, you do your job to the best of your ability, and you involve yourself and include yourself. You make yourself all inclusive.
Absolutely. I can tell you that, you know, even going back 100 years ago, the trade union principle has been that you cannot hold a trade union meeting in a licensed place where there's drink.
Yes.
That's been historic. However, what people do in their private lives,
that's their business. Absolutely, absolutely.
But nobody, in fact, pushes you. But you know, I've got messages people out there, young people particularly. But trade unions, in fact, provide good careers, good jobs, highly paid jobs, good pension funds. People should be forward-coming to participate. But one is that you get really good salaries, good pensions. Secondly, there's so much you can do.
Let's go back a bit first. We'll come to that in a moment. What is a trade union? Let's start with that.
A trade union is an organization that organizes workers in a collective organization. It's all voluntary, nobody's forced into it. At the moment in Britain now, in the UK, we have 54 trade unions. The largest trade union, which is my own, Unite, the union, which has 1.5 million members.
Unite has 1.5 million?
1.5 million members. And then we have the smallest union with 4,000 members. So we have, in fact, big unions, whole spectrum. There are 54 trade unions, and the trade union movement, in fact, at the moment represents 6.5 million people in the UK, which is an umbrella body, as a lobbying group for all the trade unions to have a common policy.
So these 54 unions, are they amalgamated to the TUC?
No, they are independent, they're separate. Okay. But what we are is that they're an affiliated body with the TUC.
Okay.
And the TUC acts as an umbrella body to articulate policies which are agreed at an annual congress every year.
So these 54 unions, they work independently, as it were, until there's a problem, and then everybody joins together to help each other out.
Yes.
That's the idea?
Absolutely.
Okay. You said it's voluntary.
Yes.
You don't have to join a union. No. But you take subs from people.
But people who give subs, they in fact pay subs. That's why I say they're a voluntary organization. Let's say the place I work at. If somebody says, I don't wish to join, they're not forced, and they don't have to be. And in my own workplace, we have about 12 people who haven't decided to join for religious reasons and other reasons. However, all the benefits which are negotiated, for example, by the trade union in that particular work plan, they benefit from that.
Yes.
And so we always try to encourage people to join.
Let's talk about benefits. What is the apparent benefit of joining a union?
Well, the apparent benefit of a trade union is, one is that collectively in the place you work, for example, you are able to negotiate better terms and conditions with the employer when it comes to paid salaries, holidays.
Because the representatives of you would do it on your behalf?
Absolutely.
Collectively?
Collectively.
Okay.
Because we have, in my workplace, we have a monthly meeting with all the members, and they tell us exactly what is required, what's going on. So we, in fact, each worker doesn't have to go on their own to defend themselves or be bullied by a manager.
Yes.
But so therefore we are able to represent collectively. If there is being disciplined, for example, they've done something, they are entitled to representation. The trade union, in fact, will take the case to a tribunal case, pay their legal fees, and they provide legal services, for example. The amount of the actual work they do for you is tremendous. For a fact, myself, I've never needed the actual representation of my trade union over the years. However, it's the importance of, it's just like having an insurance policy on your house just in case it gets burned down.
Right.
Just in case that you stop working and you need to pay. Trade union, in fact, is not a protection racket. But what it is that you got on tap legal advice, help and assistance at the workplace, because those people at the workplace know better how to handle the company or handle the managers.
You know, one thing I hope I'm wrong, but what I've seen in my own experience in the work environment is that for some reason Muslims, or I should say Asians, are held back from promotion. They get so high, maybe foreman, say on a shop floor, become foreman or supervisor, and that's it. And then somebody new will come in, usually white, who will supersede them. They'll train that person. So the Asian will train the newcomer, and within say 8 to 10 months that newcomer becomes their boss. And this was, I mean, I saw it myself in quite a few instances. The trade union, what difference has made to that?
I would say to you that wherever there's a trade union organised place, in fact, it has worked. Let me give you an example of my own workplace. At one point when I started in 1974, we used to have 150 managers in totality, a workforce of 1,600, and inspectors, what we used to call them, managers. And there was no single person from the black community, Asian communities, or Muslim communities for that matter. We fought for 6 years as workers, and I was part of the struggle. We were able to bring in the Commission for Racial Equality those days. They carried out an investigation for 18 months. And then when they came back and they said, look, this is what's wrong, you need to put it right. But you can be rest assured, the 18 months while the investigation was going on, we certainly saw some promotions.
Yes.
And I can tell you now, at the last count, we had something like 80% of our managers of the whole workforce, Asian or black.
80%?
80%.
MashaAllah.
And we, in fact, has hit hard the problem of non-promotions. But let me say this to you and to your viewers, that I'm not denying there isn't those problems. There's problems in the trade union movement, for example, that with the people are not being progressed, they're not coming through. There's actually problems in the health sector and local authorities. And particularly with the Muslim community, in fact, that we didn't decide to send our young people and women to educate compared to the Hindu and Sikh communities, and I pay compliment to them for the money they invested in the early years. Those days, there was a period back in the 1780s, there was a lot of pressure on local authority to appoint people. And they, in fact, were looking for the best people. And those best people at the time, in fact, were educated children from the Hindu, Sikh communities, African communities. And the Muslim communities, in fact, did not climb through. Now we are facing pressures of austerity that's taking place, and of course cutbacks, and these are. So there is that, in fact, a hold up. There is a report that's just come out last week, in fact this week on Tuesday in the House of Parliament, from Coventry, Coventry Women's Report, which indicates, in fact, the Muslim women, Bangladeshi women, Pakistani women are suffering literally 90% more discrimination because they have been held back. I'm
glad you said it rather than me, because at least then I know that you're aware of this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you can be rest assured that I, in fact, raised that within TC. we raised with my own trade union. In fact, we had a debate this week on same issue in my own trade union, and I spoke on the basis that women have been held back. By the same token, I talk about the political parties, including the Labour Party, for example, is holding women back. The Conservative Party, UKIP, for example. And it's important that people like myself, in fact, speak up for the voiceless. And what I'm saying to you, one of the commitments I gave from day one I became the president of TUC, I said, in fact, I was going to speak out for wider participation of women in our civil society. Nevertheless, I said that I was very keen, I'm determined to actually stand up and wherever I go, speak out. That really we need the involvement of young Muslim women coming through, participating in civic society, Chamber of Commerce, Business and Commerce, because our community would be so much better.
So let me stop you there again, because you just said something very interesting there. You said you like young women to come through into the movement. Tell me how they would do that.
Oh, I would say to you, they need to get involved at a very a young age when they get to the place of work, their employment. They need to be actually looking at how to get involved in trade union, where the branch meetings are. And I say to people, don't just pay your union dues every week and settle with that. Ask for the full Monty, the full bargain, which is, look, I'm paying my money, I want a voice in the organisation. There's one young lady, a Pakistani young lady in Middlesbrough, and in fact, the first time I met her was when she was 16, and I was on a coach with her, and I was giving her some sort of a word of advice, wisdom, how to get involved, what you do. And some 7 years later, I met her, and she's an officer in our union, and she's doing a tremendous job. There's an officer in the GMB union I met. There's quite a few young ladies up and down the country, and when I actually see them and I support them, other people do. And you know what I say to people is that I look behind and I can't see anybody following me over the next 25, 30 years.
You know, I mean, I'm going to interrupt you again, sorry about this, but on TV, in all the sitcoms, the trade union guy is always very aggressive.
Yes.
He's very loud.
Yes.
He's usually literate, but makes a lot of noise. Carry On films, I'm sure you remember.
Yes.
Carry On, was it Up the Lavatories, stupid like that, you know. And
Citizen Smith.
Citizen Smith, yeah. And they always portray the TUC guy as the odd one out. He's the troublemaker, you know. And nobody likes him, but they have to have him, because if they don't get with the union. But nobody likes him. Now, you're saying our young ladies should get involved in this. Do they have to be loud? Do they have to be coarse? Do they have to be...
Absolutely not. Like myself, I think you've seen me. I'm not just behaving in this manner just because I'm on your TV show. That's my normal nature. And when I'm in talking, negotiating with my bosses, I'm this nature.
So it's very important to say this, because I don't want people to get the impression that you have to be loud, you have to be outspoken, you have to be militant, you have to be aggressive to get somewhere. You know?
What you have to be, you got to have the passion. You have to go to the desire.
Yes.
To do wider good for...
To make a change.
To make a change.
Yes.
And if you are determined, if you have that passion, most crucial thing is passion. And I had the passion that I wanted to stop the corruption. And that led to the next item of non-promotions for black people, Asian people. But you know, those days we used to work together as various religions, various different communities, African communities, in politics, in the labour movement, because there used to be tremendous amount of the unity. You know, I saw badges. You know, people used to go around. It says, if you want to, if you love a nigger, vote Labour. And those badges used to be worn by people. And I saw signboards saying, no Irish and no dogs and no Pakis allowed. They would rent houses. But we've actually have moved 1,000,000 miles. However, the journey is now over. I face tremendous amount of discrimination all the time, but you know, I'm pretty thick-skinned. I challenge it every day. And when I'm talking about young women participating, you know, at the same time I'm saying we want young men to come through. Now, I've actually have climbed a ladder up what I am today, but I'm 62 now, and I've got long to go before I retire. But what I'm saying to
I've got to ask you, this is again, I'm going to tell you, this is something I've got to ask you. You were born in Pakistan, okay? Now, my experience with Pakistanis is they don't know the date of birth. Tell me, what is your date of birth?
I honestly don't know my date of birth.
I knew it. I knew it.
And you know, I say to people, anybody who has a date of birth 7722.
Yes, 11. That's most common, is the 11.
Common, and they actually don't know. Let me share this thoughts with you. That I was when I was born and my parents gave me
You
my,
Punjabi, English, Urdu, whatever you like.
मेरी माँ ने जो है बाप ने मेरा नाम जो है मुमताज़ रखा था। तो जब इमिग्रेशन ऑफिस को मिलने के लिए रावलपिंडी आए तो मेरे दादा जान गए वो एजेंट के पास, तो बोलता जो एजेंट था बोलता दादा जान बाबा जी आपके पोते का नाम क्या है? तो वो बोले भाई इसका नाम है माशाल्लाह मुमताज़। उन्होंने बोला भाई अच्छा भाई मुमताज़ की स्पेलिंग बाबा जी मुझे देना। बोलते मुझे उर्दू नहीं लिखनी आती, अंग्रेज़ी बेटा मैं कहूँ से बोलता बाबा जी मुसीबत है, मुझे भी नहीं आता लिखना, मैं कैसे लिखूँ मुमताज़ इंग्लिश में, अगर आप बुरा नाम ना है तो मैं इसका नाम लिख देता हूँ मोहम्मद ताज।
वो लिखना आता है मुझे।
अभी आता है। फिर मेरा नाम जो है ना चेंज हो गया जब मेरी उम्र थी 14 बरस। इसके बाद जो है मेरी माँ मेरा दादाजी मुझे हमेशा जितनी देर जिंदा रहे अल्लाह ताला उनको जन्नत नसीब करे मुमताज़ ही बोलते थे। फिर मैं जब माँ मेरी ज़िंदा थी मुझे बोला मेरे दोस्त यार जितने हैं भी वो सेलिब्रेट करते हैं अपनी बर्थडे, मुझे भी माँ कब मेरी बर्थडे है, ये जो 7/7 है, मैं बोलती है बेटा मुझे याद नहीं है। जब पटिशन हुई थी ना कश्मीर की, जब रौला पड़ा था ऐसे बोला तुम पैदा हुए तो 4-5 इसके बाद मुझे पक्की याद है भाई वो जो ना फगन पो का महीना था तो हमारी मज सुई थी तो हमने जो बोली जो बांटी थी सब गांव वाले को। तो मैं उस वक्त में काफ़ी थोड़ा फेडअप होया, नाराज़ भी था। मैं कहा माँ आपको सब कुछ याद है, आपको याद है मेरी वो कट्टे की शक्ल मिलती जुलती थी कि नहीं? तो मुझे बोलने लगे मेरी माँ, मैं बोलती है बेटा नहीं तुम तो जो है सब तू खूबसूरत बेटा हो,
चांद थे तुम
तो मेरी बहन बोलती है अगर ये खूबसूरत है तो जो दूसरे बाकी है ना 22 के खुदा ही उनकी मदद करे।
नहीं ऐसी कोई बात नहीं माशाल्लाह। मैं इसे देख कितनी जो बात हम कर रहे हैं हम हालांकि उसका थोड़ा मजाक करें लेकिन हमारी कम्युनिटी में ये तस्वर ही नहीं था कि बच्चे की डेट ऑफ बर्थ को रिकॉर्ड करना। और यहाँ पे होता क्या है कि 115577 11 सबसे कॉमन है। तो अभी तक ये सिस्टम हमारा चल रहा है। तो इसलिए मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि ट्रेड यूनियंस जो हैं यहाँ पे जब आप उनमें ज्वाइन करते हैं, क्योंकि ये बड़ा कह लें कि ऑफिशियल सिस्टम होता है इनका, बड़ा लीगली ये बड़े बाउंड होते हैं और दे आर वेरी अस्ट्यूट इन व्हाट दे आर डूइंग, कमिंग फ्रॉम अ बैकग्राउंड where things are not so important as we're a bit laid back when it comes to legal terms, legal jargon, legal matters. And then you come into this austere meaning very strict kind of regime. What does that do to you as a person? Do you become more westernized or do you try to adapt the union to your lifestyle? What do you do?
Can I say it in terms of that I've always found that my wife in fact is dressed very traditionally, my children are very traditional, my son, my daughter-in-law are very traditional, very religious.
MashaAllah.
And my mother was very religious. Me and my father were quite liberal, that in fact that in terms of the friends and colleagues from all different backgrounds of friends, and my mother as well. But what I find is that nobody's forcing you to change your way of life to do what. What I've learned is that you got to learn about other people's life, way of life, etc. And then you got to accommodate them, and you got to go meet them halfway. In terms of you don't have to wear skirts, or if somebody wants to. My daughter-in-law wears an hijab, and I'm very proud of her. My wife does wear an hijab, and I'm also proud of her because there's an understanding that she should be entitled to dress the way she feels comfortable.
I'm glad that I asked you this question, and you've answered it exactly the way I was hoping you'd answer, because we integrate on our terms.
Absolutely.
Integrate is a horrible word.
Yes.
But we live in this country, and we react and interact and relate to the host community on our terms. As long as we do that, we put the best foot forward, and I'm sure they put their best foot forward, and we get a culture where we can two communities can survive together. If we try and become British, we do everything their way, it's not possible. But we lose our identity. And identity is what it's all about, especially now as the 5th generation in this country. Having said that, the trade unions, are they empowered to take into account people's ethnic backgrounds, their cultures, their religions, or do they just go according to the letter of the law?
No, absolutely. Trade unions, in fact, as they say in English, that when you are going to boil the soup, it always boils from the bottom and then
Yes.
gets to the top.
Yes.
You put the ingredients at the top. The trade union movement, in fact, is like that boiling pot. That you have to put the ideas, the ingredients from the top. So if we are wanting facilities, like I gave an example in my workplace,
Yes.
holidays, it's always demand-led. There's meetings every month. You, in fact, put a motion or resolution, you
Yes.
change its policies.
Yes.
Now, I say today, you know, Jewish community has been in Britain now over 200 years.
Mm.
And if you look in Manchester, where we are today, there's a certain part of Manchester is always closed on Sabbath on
Yes.
those days. If they
All the
have-
warehouses.
warehouses,
Yes. Yes.
they have integrated so well in
Yes.
the British society and in
Yes.
Europe. And they have retained their culture, their religion.
I think it's
And-
the way around.
Yeah.
They've integrated so well
Yeah.
that the indigenous community has come around to their way of thinking.
Absolutely.
They've made them
Yeah.
feel very comfortable. They made themselves feel so comfortable.
Yes.
Everyone's going around them.
Yes.
So
In fact, they are business leaders.
they are business. They're leaders.
They control lots of society, banks, buildings,
Yes.
and you have politics, for example. There's lots and lots of people.
They lead the communities.
Absolutely,
Yes.
they're all over,
Yes.
and I think they have done it so successfully.
Yes.
And I think, you know, sometimes I read a book many years ago, and there was a Jewish writer, and he said, you know, when you go to some country, you study the law of the land,
Yes.
and once you know the law of the land, you cannot go wrong. What we have to do, in fact, is study the law of the land, understand the institution
Yes.
this country, and if we participate in those institutions properly, effectively.
Yes.
In fact, at the moment, Muslim community has been hounded by the media, everything else. I'll give you an example that when I was first elected as President TUC, first question I was asked by a BBC journalist was, Mr. Taj, can you tell us what is it like being a president, the first Muslim president TUC? And I said, well, I don't really know that. I've looked at the history of the trade union movement. It's 145 years, I'm the first Muslim to be elected.
Yeah.
And I was looking to see if what religion of the other presidents were, and there's no mention of
There's
it.
no mention. So why mine? Yes.
So I says, I don't see any reason actually why it should make any difference to me. So I said to him, I says, why don't you ask me, what is it like being the president of TUC and driving a bus, being a steering wheel?
Yeah.
And he said, well, that's a very good question. And he says, can you tell us? I says, well, I can tell you that being a president is much easier than a bus driver. Because when you're taking a bus out of the depot 4 o'clock and frozen stiff in the winter, and it's cold, the heaters are not working, these misters are not working. I says, I have 3 offices in London, different places I work out at the moment. They have lovely heaters and it's very warm. So I think, you know, being a worker at the grassroots level, whether you work in a factory or mill or bus driver or lorry driver, it's very hard. And so I can in fact compare with that. But I think sometimes they tend to target you and tarnish you because you're Muslim. And I have been saying to people, I said, look, I'm the first president to be elected from the South Asian community. First one is that I'm a bus driver, ordinary worker for the shop floor level, who came to this country 14 years of age, couldn't speak a word of English. You would have never imagined that this would happen to my lifetime.
Not
But one of the things I'm able to do, in fact, is that I'm able to influence decision makers at the moment, at the highest level of government, in the trade union movement, and I'm able to actually give the message with the problems the Muslim community is facing. And I've spoken to many forums about Islamophobia that not many people, in fact, are willing to do so. I'm prepared to speak on many forums where I'm saying, look, we got to allow Muslim women full participation, like our religion allows them to do so, equality, and we will be a much wealthier, better society with their participation.
Absolutely. There's no reason why Muslim women should be singled out from the rest of the female population in Europe, never mind England, just because of their dress sense or mode of clothes or hijab. In fact, it's a woman's right to dress the way she wants to.
Absolutely.
If she can walk down the road with a bikini on, I'm sure she can wear a hijab as well.
Absolutely.
And trade unions, because that's what we're talking about, how are they helping with this?
The trade union movement is, as I said to you, in fact, is a body which has got lots of socialist principles. And one of the positions of the TUC has been, of the trade union movement, has been the woman's right to dress the way we wish to do so.
Okay.
And the same application, in fact, has on the hijab. When these events happen in France, other part of the world, we in fact worked with trade unions in Germany, France, and with the wider the European network. And we in fact gave them guidance, advice, and you'll find trade unions in France, in Germany, are still solidly behind the issue of women's right to express them the way they wish to so. If somebody wishes to wear a mini skirt, they're entitled to do so. If they want to wear a bikini, and if a Muslim wants to wear a hijab, of course, it's a very respectable dress. And you know, we have nuns, for example, who wear them all the time. And there's no comment about that. Why should there be a comment about the hijab?
Absolutely.
And I stand by, as the president of the TUC, and I've made it quite clear that women's rights will be protected at all times.
I'm glad. Having said that, though, the nature of the unions is changing now. I'm coming on to political terms now. Politically, unions are changing now because the biggest example is that the Labour Party and trade unions were sync. They were together from time immemorial. And if you were part of the Labour Party, it was a given that you'd be part of a trade union as well. And that the trade unions were actually funding the Labour Party as well to some extent. Well, quite a large extent.
Yes.
And for many, many years. Now, Miliband has just separated the Labour Party from the trade unions. And now it's not an automatic entry for the trade unions into the Labour Party or for members. Give me your thoughts, number one, on why do you think Miliband's done this?
Well, let me say this to you. I think the reason Miliband has done this, and this is just pure speculation, I think the Labour Party is, in fact, is moving down the road of public funding by the taxpayer for political parties.
Right.
The Liberals over the years always have believed that they actually do want public funding by the taxpayer. Conservative Party has been opposed to it, but they can always get funding from the business community. Labour Party, in fact, has been very uncomfortable for a long time now in terms of the link they have with the trade unions, because they were seen as a big lobbying group. And there was a public impression that certainly they were under the thumbs or controlled by the trade union movement. What I can tell you from inside story is that, in fact, that was never the case. The trade unions, in fact, have funded the Labour Party over the years because it was created by them. And so, therefore, there's an obligation. But, you know, we shouldn't worry about this link at all, because I personally very much welcome it. And I say the reasons.
You welcome the break?
I actually welcome the break. I think it's overdue. You see, one, there is a perception by the public, and the other parties keep attacking you, that there is a problem. And then, of course, you've got to break away from that. Secondly, the trade union movement, in fact, wanted to break away also. And they, in fact, have embraced the changes that are coming forward. And the reason for that is this, that the system where the trade union movement, if I give you an example, on Neil Kinnock's days where Labour Party were in opposition, my own union, which was the Transport and General Workers Union, gave the Labour Party £45 million over 15 years while they were in opposition. They wasn't able to do anything. This is Margaret Thatcher's days. But they gave them money to the Labour Party because there's a commitment, it's in our rule book, we had to do that. What did we get in return those 15 years? Nothing. Now, even now, when we pass various resolutions for workers' rights, repeal of trade union, anti-trade union legislation, for example, the Labour Party, in fact, has never done it. So I think time has come. And this new constitution that Miliband, in fact, has drawn, you know, I think it's very encouraging.
Yeah. And
particularly people in our community, the Asian, Black and American communities, because, you know, there is a lack of representation from our communities. If you look at the Muslim population representation in the prisons, we are 33% in jail, people for drug dealing and others, and selling. But when it comes to politics, we're nowhere to be seen. We are not there. So one member, one vote in constituency parties up and down the country, in fact, will give power to local people to have the ability to recruit people in the Labour Party and, of course, then select people as well. Now, trade unions also are guilty. In fact, they've been holding people back over the years.
Yes.
Because when trade unions talk about we want working class people in the House of Parliament, and I'm saying to you, those working class people must be from Muslim community, must be from the Hindu Sikh communities, and why the other religious groups. Because if we have 100,000 people from one community in this country, we must have some representation and voice for them.
Of course.
So I've been arguing the case, and they've been listening, they're hearing. But important thing is, you know, we need competent, capable people. And when those people come forward, we should be selecting on their ability, not on their clan or caste and their religion. And I think this is a failing on our side. And back in the 70s, 80s, what I saw was we used to work together. And, you know, we need to go back to the grassroots level, back to the 1780s. And if somebody is Sunni, Shia, or Wahhabi, or Sikh or Hindu, or a Christian, it shouldn't really matter. If you think somebody can do a good job, they'll be a good spokesperson, and I think we should be going for those people rather than career politicians.
Yes. Well, going back to the Labour Party and trade unions, because they've separated, what difference will it make to the power of the unions now? Because before they had the mantle of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party was to some extent giving them the kudos that they had the power to do things. Now that they're separate, would they be actually lobbying the Labour Party as well, or would they be, I don't know, are the doors still open in the party? What's happening?
No, the relationship, I can say that to you, is very strong at the moment, because I'm involved in some of those meetings with the TUC, with my own trade union, other trade unions. It's very strong, and the link is not going to break. Because the trade union movement is not, in fact, going to walk away from the Labour Party. It's our party, and it represents workers. And my own union, or the union, is loud and clear that we will make all money available that's required for the next election next year, because we're not going to deprive the party of that. And the reason for that is this: if we get the return of the Conservative Party on its own, and I can actually forecast that we will see the privatisation of the NHS, we will see the end of the welfare state, which I think would be very damaging. So this next election coming up in 2015, and the European elections which are coming, is so crucial that we actually use our vote. Doesn't really matter which party vote for the European elections. We should participate. It's a civic duty, and we should go out there. And particularly the Muslim community, in fact, has been kind of very low-lying. They don't raise their head above the parapet. And my message to them: be strong. There's nobody going to do anything or say anything to you.
Yes.
And you know, the vote or the pen is stronger than the sword. So this is why it's so crucial.
Pen is mightier than the sword, absolutely. You know, this really is, to me, obviously at the same time, but to me, this is the next generation now of Labour Party and the unions. And I'm concerned that because of this split, the people who are going to fall in the chasm between the two are the Asians again. Because the Labour Party, as you so rightly said before, though it's working hard to try and bridge the gap between male and female ratios, it's not doing enough. Now the Labour Party is separate from the unions. That pressure from the union obviously can't be applied anymore now to the Labour Party. On the other hand, the Labour Party, because of what it was doing, was influencing the trade unions to also bring women, especially the ethnic minorities, into their ranks. Now that they're both separate, I'm concerned that the march of the Asian community in both these genders or both these parties and union will be arrested or slowed down quite a bit.
No, I don't, in fact, prescribe to that, and I'll give you my reasons.
Yes.
There are over 650,000 people from Black and Asian communities who are members of trade unions.
Okay.
And you know, the current membership of the Labour Party is around the figure of 220,000 members. Out of those people, if you get 650,000 members, if you get, let's say, 100,000 people joining, you're literally taking the party over, haven't you?
Yes.
And if strategically people, in fact, are placed in constituencies, wards up and down, the way the system, so you've got to understand the system, the way it works. In fact, I would say trade unions and the Asian community is going to be in a far stronger position in the future. You see, we have right and the left of politics in the Labour Party and trade union movement. And the right wing, which is the people from the Blairite groups over the years, they've been controlling it.
Yes.
They are losing grip and they're very unhappy. And that's why they keep making the intervention. So in fact, I'm looking very much forward to the new concept, because I'm confident in our union we will be able to recruit at least 200,000 members into the Labour Party, just my union alone, out of 1.5 million members. So in fact, the electoral college currently, or was, the MP, just 292, they had 33% of the vote. In future, they will also have one vote. That means you recruit 293 people, you cancel all these people. So the unfairness of the electoral college, in fact, was with the Euro MPs having greater power. So I think these new rules that have been brought up, I think they're very healthy. I think they're going to be good for the party, good for the membership. And this is why I say to people, I say, look, join a trade union if you're not a member already. And there are very good reasons doing so. And the second good reason is actually join the Labour Party if you want to participate, or any political party for that matter, because I think we need to diversify, we need to be involved in all political parties. That's my stance, because the TUC in fact is non-political. So my current role for 12 months is non-political. So when you participate, can you imagine if you go on a course for a week about politics and a huge, successfully good training, which I received over the years. In fact, what you do have is you got your money back. And so therefore, participate, get out there, make sure that we put our community on the map.
Okay. That was a very good point to stop this discussion at, because a very positive end to our discussion. It's a very, you can say, prophesizing the future as well, kind of statement. And also, it's something that gives you hope for the future. Mohammed Hidayat, it's been nice. It's been really nice talking to you. It's been the kind of conversation where I hope that the Muslim community has learned that they can get ahead, that they can go from one stage to the next. They can integrate on their own terms and be the leaders of organizations in this country, bar none. And I hope that through your inspirational talk and your example and your coming months, we'll see more of you, hear more from you, and hopefully see and follow in your footsteps. Taj Mohammed Saab, thank you. Mohammed Hidayat, thank you very much for today.
Dr. Saab, thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
Thank you very much. And I don't need to say any more. Mohammed Hidayat said everything that needed to be said, and I believe that with people like Mohammed Hidayat leading us, this community can only go from strength to strength, better and better, day by day. Watch this space in 10 years if people like Mohammed Hidayat are the leaders of our community. Flashpoint has come to its natural end today. Until next week, with Aftab Ahmed, Khuda Hafiz.